how did you come to these conclusions? I mean, I don't imagine this is how you looked at the world when you were young.
True.
So how did you come to these conclusions? I understand that your father, Sheikh Hassan Youssef, is a co-founder of Hamas. So obviously that's complicated, to say the least.
Right.
So tell me how you looked at things when you were a young man, and then what events in your life started to change your mind?
Since I was very young, I had...
How old are you now?
I'm 45 years.
45, okay. So you were born in about 1980?
1978.
78, yeah.
So I had critical thinking from the early beginning of my life. When the mullah told the funeral crowd that the angels of heaven are going to come back and interrogate this deceased in the grave, they're going to bring his soul back, they're going to torture him, and if he does not answer the right question, it's going to be an open hell. I went back to the graveyard and I investigated. I was only 10 years old. And since that point of my life, I did not find death intimidating as much as actually became my drive to seek a higher truth. It led me eventually...
So tell me about that again. I don't understand that story exactly. What event was that?
So basically in the Islamic belief, there is something called the grave torture. This is a device the religious authorities use to control the Muslim population. When the person dies in the grave, supposedly there is torture and there is interrogation. If the person doesn't know who is his God, who is his prophet, if he failed to answer the questions regarding the religion, they're going to be tortured painfully.
Mm-hmm.
They're like...
so it's like a last judgment sort of...
yes, but it happens in the transitional period.
Yeah.
So, because people die, and they've been dying for thousands of years. So when the afterlife hell is going to happen, which is a fundamental thing in Islam, the afterlife, heaven and hell. So many people die, and is there torture? So they come up with the story that there is grave torture. Whether Muhammad said this or not, but it's widely believed in the Islamic faith. And many people were afraid. When I was very young, I asked all my friends to go back with me to the cemetery, and none of them agreed. And when I went back, I was terrified. Eventually, I did not hear any screaming, any torture, and I put my ear to the ground, trying to listen.
You did this alone?
I did this alone because none of my friends would come back with me to the graveyard. It's terrifying.
Is this during the day?
It was during the day.
During the day.
But eventually, I found my peace even at night time. And this might sound a bit psychic, but I reached the point that was my challenge to myself, where was I able to lay down in an open grave and look at the stars at midnight.
How old were you when you did that?
I was maybe 12, 13 years old.
What do you think drove you to do that?
It's my fear of death.
Yeah.
Because the entire culture...
Usually people avoid it, though, rather than confronting it.
Well, it sounds strange, but this is when I made peace with death. And this is actually what empowered me throughout my journey.
Right. So that's very young when you did that.
Yes.
How many times did you go visit a grave?
So basically, we were just next to the graveyard. This is not actually the most important thing of observing death and having an early age encounter with death. That the first Palestinian Intifada started when I was living in that neighborhood. So...
And you were living where exactly?
Right next to the cemetery.
Okay.
So here is the cemetery wall, and here's my bed.
Okay, and where are you geographically located at that point?
That's Ramallah and Al-Bira, to the north of Jerusalem.
Okay.
It's today the capital of what's the Palestinian Authority.
Okay.
basically.
Okay. So you're north of Jerusalem.
Yes.
All right.
But we were at the heart of the conflict. And now all the bloodshed, all the youngsters who got shot during the first Palestinian Intifada were buried next door. So I guarantee you that there is no one in that conflict that witnessed firsthand bloodshed as much as I did as a child. Hundreds of people were buried next door, whether they died naturally or they died because of the conflict or internal conflict between Hamas and Fatah, where, they shot each other or stabbed each other. So the entire conflict was displayed in front of my eyes as a child. And I couldn't find a stronger motive. Why are we suffering? Why are we dying? And who's doing this to us? Of course, the narrative on the Palestinian street that this is Israel, this is the Jewish people killing us. And as a child, I did not have the power to discern, to see a higher truth. How could I? It's the same thing with the children now in Gaza. They suffer the consequences of war, but they don't realize or understand how the war originated. So in that situation, I had the trauma of the first Palestinian Intifada, and all the memories stay with me. This is what empowers me to carry on.
And that was when that would be
1987.
87. Okay.
1987 to 1992, 1990.
What's the definition of Intifada?
Chaos. People call it uprising, but the very definition, not only of Intifada, of Palestine, very similar definitions. It's chaos, it's disorder, it's anti-establishment.
How does it arise?
Or simply Yasser Arafat sitting in Tunisia. This is supposed to be the father of the Palestinian revolution.
The same Yasser Arafat who died with like $4 billion.
A lot
Yasser
more.
Arafat?
A lot more. Yasser Arafat was an Egyptian con artist. He was born in Egypt with an Egyptian accent. It was so obvious to know that he's Egyptian, but everybody was in denial that he's Palestinian and he's the father of the Palestinian revolution. After they were kicked out of Jordan, of Lebanon, and they ended up in Tunisia, some 2,000 miles away, they came up with the idea to engineer the Intifada. They wanted trouble, but from within. They knew that this could be a lot more effective than trying to destroy Israel from outside.